The parking lot was almost empty that night. Just a few scattered cars under the yellow streetlights, and him standing there like a statue. His phone felt heavy in his hand. He'd been staring at it for 10 minutes now, trying to decide if he should make the call. Inside that building, his mom was fighting for her life. The doctors had come out an hour ago with those careful words they use when they don't want to give you false hope. "We're doing everything we can," they'd said. "The next few hours are critical." Those words kept playing over and over in his head like a broken record. He finally pressed the call button. His fingers were shaking so badly he almost dropped the phone. It rang twice before she picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, a little confused. It was late after all. "Hey, it's me," he managed to say. "I know I have no right to call you, but I didn't know who else to reach out to. My mom, she's in surgery. It's bad." There was silence on the other end. He could hear her breathing, thinking, probably wondering why he was calling her after 3 years of silence. 3 years since he'd walked away from everything they'd built together. "Which hospital?" she asked simply. No questions, no hesitation, just those 2 words. 20 minutes later, her car pulled into the parking lot. He watched her get out, pulling her jacket tighter against the cold night air. She looked the same but different somehow. Her hair was shorter. She looked tired but also stronger than he remembered. They sat together on a bench near the entrance. The automatic doors kept whooshing open and closed as nurses and visitors came and went. Neither of them spoke for a while. "Thank you for coming," he finally said. "I mean it." "You didn't have to." She turned to look at him. Her eyes were the same warm brown he remembered, but there was something guarded in them now. A wall he'd helped build with his choices. "Your mom was always kind to me," she said, "even after everything." That word hung between them, everything. It covered so much hurt, so many broken promises, so many dreams they'd once shared that he'd thrown away because he was too scared to chase them. "I need to tell you something," he said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "Mom has been on my case for months now. She kept asking me when I was going to stop lying to myself." "Lying about what?" He took a deep breath. This was harder than he thought it would be. "About my job. About my life. About everything, really. You remember that dream I had? The youth center where we could mentor kids from difficult backgrounds? Help them find their path?" She nodded slowly. Of course she remembered. She'd helped him plan it all out. They'd spent countless nights at her kitchen table, sketching ideas, making lists, dreaming together about the difference they could make. "I killed that dream," he continued. "I took the corporate job instead. The safe choice. The one that paid well and looked good on paper. And I've been miserable every single day since. Why are you telling me this now?" Her voice was gentle, but there was pain in it too. "Because last week I promised Mom I would finally do it. I would quit and start the center like I always wanted to. She got so excited you should have seen her face. She said she'd been praying for me to find my courage again." His voice cracked. "And now she's in there fighting for her life, and I'm terrified I'll never get to show her that I finally listened." A tear rolled down his cheek, and he didn't bother wiping it away. She reached over and took his hand. Just held it, no words needed. They sat like that for a long time, watching the night sky slowly turn gray with the coming dawn. Nurses changed shifts. The coffee machine in the lobby hummed its familiar tune. Life kept moving forward even when it felt like everything should stop. Finally, a doctor came out. They both jumped to their feet. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. "The surgery went better than we expected," the doctor said with a tired smile. "She's stable now. She'll need a long recovery, but she's a fighter. You can see her in a few hours once she's out of recovery." He couldn't speak. The relief hit him so hard his knees almost gave out. She caught his arm, steadying him, and he found himself crying again. This time from gratitude, from exhaustion, from 3 years of holding everything and finally breaking loose. She held him there in the hospital corridor as people walked by, as phones rang at the nurses' station, as the world continued its normal rhythm, and for the first time in 3 years, something inside him that had been frozen solid started to thaw. When he finally pulled himself together, he looked at her and saw tears on her cheeks too. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything, for giving up on myself, for pushing you away, for becoming someone I didn't recognize." "I know," she said softly. "I know you are." They got coffee from the machine. It tasted awful, but neither of them cared. They sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs and waited for the hours to pass until he could see his mom. She didn't leave. She stayed right there beside him, even though she had every reason to walk away. As the morning sun started streaming through the hospital windows, he realized something. This woman who he'd hurt, who he'd abandoned when things got scary, who had every right to hate him, was still capable of showing up when it mattered. She was still capable of kindness even when he'd given her nothing but reasons to be angry. "Why did you come?" he asked. "Really?" She was quiet for a moment, stirring her terrible coffee with a tiny plastic stick. "Because some people are worth showing up for," she finally said. "Even when they forget their own worth. Even when they hurt you. Some people are worth believing in until they remember how to believe in themselves again." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. Not because they were harsh, but because they were true. And because he realized he'd spent 3 years running from someone who had seen his potential, even when he couldn't see it himself. The PA system crackled overhead, calling for some doctor to report to the ICU. Families shuffled past carrying balloons and flowers, life and death and everything in between happening all at once in this building. "I don't deserve your kindness," he said. "Probably not," she agreed with a small, sad smile. "But that's the thing about kindness. It's not about deserving. It's about choosing to be human even when it's hard." When they finally let him in to see his mom, she came with him. His mom was pale and weak, tubes and wires everywhere, but her eyes lit up when she saw them walk in together. She couldn't talk much, but she squeezed his hand and then looked at her standing by the door. A small smile crossed his mom's tired face. She'd always loved her. Always said she was the best thing that ever happened to him. She'd been right about that too. Over the next few days, he barely left the hospital. And somehow, without either of them planning it, she kept coming back. She brought him food when he forgot to eat. She made him go outside for fresh air when he'd been sitting too long. She was just there, solid and steady, like a lighthouse in a storm. 3 weeks had passed since that night in the hospital. His mom was getting stronger every day. The doctors were calling her recovery remarkable. She'd gone from barely being able to sit up to walking short distances down the hallway with help. He visited her every evening after work. And more often than not, she was there too. It started to feel normal again, the three of them together, almost like the old days, but not quite. There was something fragile about it all, like a soap bubble that might pop if anyone moved too quickly. His mom noticed everything, of course. Mothers always do. She'd watch the two of them when they thought she wasn't looking. She'd see how he lit up when she walked into the room. She'd notice how she would unconsciously smooth his mom's blanket or adjust her pillows, those small caring gestures that showed she still felt like family. One Tuesday afternoon, he arrived to find his mom sitting up in her chair by the window. She looked more alert than she had in weeks. There was something determined in her expression that made him nervous. "Sit down," she said, patting the chair next to her. "We need to talk." He sat, feeling suddenly like a kid about to get lectured. She waited until she had his full attention. "That girl who keeps showing up here," his mom started. "The one who brings me books and talks to me about her work at the community center. The one who makes you smile for the first time in years. You going to tell me what happened between you two?" He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Mom, it's complicated." "Life is complicated," she shot back with surprising strength. "That's not an excuse. You loved her once. She clearly still cares about you. So what happened?" The story came out in pieces. How they'd met in college, both passionate about helping their community. How they'd planned to start the mentorship center together after graduation. How everything changed when he got that job offer at the big company downtown. Good money, benefits, prestige. Everything his parents had worked hard to give him the opportunity to achieve. "I thought I was being smart," he explained. "Practical. The center was just a dream, you know. The job was real. It was security. And she wanted you to choose the dream," his mom said. "It wasn't a question. She said I was giving up on myself, that I was letting fear make my decisions. We fought about it for months. Eventually I pushed her away. Told her she was being unrealistic, that she needed to grow up and face the real world." His mom was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. "And were you happy, these past 3 years, with your practical choice?" He couldn't look at her. No, not even a little bit. So she was right. Those 3 words stung because they were true. She'd been right about everything. He'd been the one who was scared. who chose safety over purpose, who let his dreams die because taking a risk felt too dangerous. When I was lying in that operating room, his mom continued, knowing I might not make it, you know what I thought about? Not about money or security or any of that. I thought about all the times I played it safe in my life, all the things I didn't do because I was afraid, and I made myself a promise that if I survived, I wouldn't waste any more time. She reached over and took his hand. That young man I raised, the one who tutored kids for free and talked about changing the world, where did he go? When did you decide his dreams weren't worth fighting for? Before he could answer, there was a soft knock on the door. She stood there holding a bag of Thai food from his mom's favorite restaurant. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, but his mom waved her in with a big smile. Perfect timing, his mom said. We were just talking about dreams and regrets and being brave enough to live the life you're meant to live. She looked between them, clearly sensing she'd walked into something heavy. But she came in anyway, unpacking the food and making light conversation about her day. His mom, however, wasn't done. She turned to her with that direct look that meant she was about to say something important. Can I ask you something personal? His mom said. She paused mid-motion. Of course. Why do you keep coming here? After what my son did, after how he hurt you, why do you keep showing up? The question hung in the air. He wanted to disappear into the floor, but she just set down the container she was holding and thought about it. Because I remember who he was, she said finally. And I can see he's trying to find his way back to that person. Sometimes people need someone to believe in them while they figure things out. His mom nodded like she'd just confirmed something she already knew. And do you still love him? Mom, he protested, but she held up her hand. I'm old and I almost died. I get to ask the hard questions now. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and his heart stopped. I never stopped, she said quietly. Even when I wanted to. Even when it would have been easier to just forget and move on. Some people leave marks on your heart that don't fade. The room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. His mom smiled like she'd just won something. Good, she said. Now that we've established that, let me tell you both something important. I had a lot of time to think while I was recovering. Life is too short for living in fear. Too short for letting pride or stubbornness keep you from the people and dreams that matter. She turned to him specifically. You've been hiding for 3 years, playing it safe, being miserable, and calling it responsibility. That's not responsibility. That's cowardice. The word hit hard because it was true. He had been a coward. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of actually trying for what he wanted and falling short. And you, his mom said to her, you're hiding too. You show up here out of kindness, but you keep your heart locked up tight. I can see it. You're protecting yourself, and I understand why. But protection comes at a cost too. She looked down at her hands. What do you want me to do? I want both of you to stop letting fear write your story, his mom said simply. Life's too precious to waste it on anything less than the truth. After she left that evening, he sat with his mom in comfortable silence. The sun was setting outside her window, painting everything golden and warm. She still loves you, his mom said softly. But love isn't enough by itself. You have to be brave enough to deserve it, to show up as your whole self, not this scared version you've been hiding behind. I don't know if I know how to do that anymore, he admitted. Yes, you do. You've just forgotten. She squeezed his hand. Start with the center. Start with that dream you buried. Show her and show yourself that you're ready to stop running. That night, lying in bed, he made a decision. He pulled out his laptop and opened the document he'd been avoiding for 3 years. The business plan for the Youth Mentorship Center. Reading through it felt like meeting an old friend he'd abandoned. All the notes were still there. His ideas, her suggestions in the margins, the logo she'd designed, the budget they'd worked out together. Evidence of a dream they'd built as a team before he'd torn it all down. He updated his resume and started drafting a resignation letter. His hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from something else, something that felt like hope waking up after a long sleep. The next morning at work, he couldn't focus. He kept thinking about what his mom had said, about being brave enough to live the life he was meant for, about deserving love by becoming someone worthy of it. During his lunch break, he took a walk to clear his head. And there she was, across the street at the community garden where she volunteered. She was teaching a group of kids how to plant seeds, her hands dirty with soil, her laugh carrying across the distance. He stood there watching her, This woman who'd never stopped being exactly who she was meant to be, who'd never compromised her values or her dreams, who'd stayed true to herself even when he'd walked away. In that moment, he understood something crucial. He didn't just want her back in his life. He wanted to become someone who deserved to be in hers, someone who lived with purpose and courage, someone who kept his promises, especially the ones he made to himself. He went back to his office and printed out his resignation letter. 2 months' notice, professional and clean. He put it in an envelope and held it for a long moment before walking to his boss's office. This was it. The first real step toward becoming himself again. The letter sat in his boss's inbox like a tiny bomb waiting to go off. He'd actually done it. After 3 years of being miserable, of sleepwalking through life, he'd finally taken the first step toward something real. The next 2 weeks were strange. His co-workers looked at him differently when word got around that he was leaving. Some thought he was crazy to walk away from such a good position. Others seemed almost jealous, like they wished they had the courage to make a similar jump. But the hardest part wasn't dealing with everyone else's opinions. It was fighting his own doubt. Late at night, he'd lie awake wondering if he was making a huge mistake. What if the center failed? What if he couldn't get enough funding? What if he'd waited too long and missed his chance? Then he'd remember his mom's words. That's not responsibility. That's cowardice. And he'd know he was doing the right thing even if it was terrifying. He hadn't told her about quitting yet. He wanted to get everything sorted first, to have a real plan in place before reaching out. Besides, she'd been busy with her own work at the nonprofit. He'd seen her a few times at the hospital visiting his mom, but their conversations were surface-level stuff, pleasant but careful, like two people walking on ice that might crack at any moment. His mom was doing remarkably well. She'd been moved to a regular room and was talking about going home soon. Physical therapy was going great. The doctors kept using words like miracle and remarkable recovery. She credited it to having something to live for, to wanting to see what would happen next in his story. One evening, he showed up at the hospital with printouts and plans. He'd found a potential location for the center, an old community building in the neighborhood where he'd grown up. It needed work, but the rent was affordable and the space was perfect. Look at this, he said, spreading everything out on his mom's bed table. 3 classrooms, a main gathering area, office space, even a small gym. The owner is willing to give me the first 3 months at half rent if I agree to fix up the place myself. His mom studied the photos and floor plans with growing excitement. This is really happening, she said, touching the papers like they were something precious. You're really doing it. I'm terrified, he admitted. But yeah, I'm doing it. Good, she said. Fear means it matters. If you weren't scared, the dream wouldn't be big enough. They were discussing paint colors and renovation plans when she walked in. She stopped in the doorway, taking in all the papers spread across the bed, the excitement on their faces. What's all this? She asked. He felt suddenly shy, like a kid showing off a school project. Just some plans. For the center. She came closer, looking at the photos of the building. He watched her face carefully, trying to read her expression. Was she happy for him? Angry that he was finally doing what she'd wanted him to do 3 years ago? Indifferent? This is the old Wilson building, she said, picking up one of the photos. I know this place. The community association has been trying to find someone to take it over for years. You think it's a good spot? He asked, hating how much her opinion still mattered to him. She studied the plans more carefully. The location is perfect, right in the heart of where kids need it most. The building has good bones. Yeah, this could really work. There was something in her voice. Not quite excitement, but not quite neutral either. Something complicated that he couldn't quite name. His mom, never one for subtlety, jumped right in. He quit his job, she announced proudly. Gave his 2 months' notice last week. He's finally doing what he should have done 3 years ago. She looked up at him and for the first time in weeks really looked at him. You quit? Yeah, he said. I couldn't keep living like that. You were right about everything. It took me way too long to figure that out. She set down the photo carefully. I'm proud of you, she said simply. This took courage. Not as much courage as I need for the next part, he said before he could stop himself. What's the next part? He glanced at his mom, who was watching this exchange like it was her favorite TV show. Figuring out the actual program, the curriculum, how to structure the mentorship, what kind of support services to offer. I'm good with kids and I know my community, but the educational framework stuff. He trailed off, feeling overwhelmed just thinking about it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised him. I might know someone who could help with that. My organization has curriculum specialists. I could introduce you if you want. It was an olive branch. Small but real. I'd appreciate that, he said. Really? She nodded and made an excuse about needing to go. After she left, his mom gave him a knowing look. What? He asked. She still cares. A lot, but you hurt her deeply. It's going to take time, I know, he said. I'm not expecting anything. I just need to focus on getting this center up and running, on becoming the person I should have been all along. Good, his mom said. Do it for yourself first. Everything else will follow. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. He finished out his notice at work, collecting his final paycheck and saying goodbye to colleagues. Some took him out for drinks and wished him well. Others just shook their heads like he was making the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't care what they thought anymore. For the first time in years, he was excited to wake up in the morning. He had purpose, direction, a reason to try. The building was worse than the photos had suggested. The roof leaked in 3 places. The heating system was ancient. One entire wall needed new drywall. But standing in that empty space, he could see it all. Kids doing homework at tables. Mentors working one-on-one with teenagers. Life and learning and growth happening right here. He started spending every day there, doing what he could himself and hiring contractors for what he couldn't. He learned more about plumbing and electrical work than he ever wanted to know. His hands got calloused. His back ached. But he'd never felt more alive. Then one night, working late, he heard a knock on the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, she stood there holding 2 coffees and a thick folder. Your mom told me you were here, she said. She also told me you've been working 16-hour days and probably haven't eaten anything but vending machine food in a week. He laughed because it was true. Yeah, that sounds about right. She handed him one of the coffees and came inside. The main room was half-painted. One wall blue and the other still that dingy yellow color from years of neglect. Tools and supplies were scattered everywhere. This is a lot of work for one person, she observed. I'm managing, he said, though they both knew he was barely keeping his head above water. She set her folder down on a makeshift table made from 2 sawhorses and a piece of plywood. I know I said I'd introduce you to someone who could help with the curriculum, but I've been thinking about it and… She paused, seeming to gather courage. I'd like to help. If you want, he stared at her. You'd help me? After everything? I'm not doing it for you, she said quickly. I'm doing it for the kids who are going to walk through these doors. They deserve the best program possible. And I'm good at this stuff. You know I am. She was right. She was brilliant at educational design. She'd been doing it for years at her nonprofit. Open the folder, she said. Inside was a complete curriculum framework. Sections on mentorship best practices, goal-setting workshops, academic support structures, life skills training, community building activities. It was comprehensive and professional and clearly represented hours and hours of work. When did you do all this? He asked, flipping through pages of detailed plans. Over the past 3 weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about this place, about what it could be. She wrapped her arms around herself. I told myself I was just doing it as an intellectual exercise. But the truth is, I never stopped believing in this dream. Even when you did. The weight of her words settled between them. She'd spent 3 years watching him give up on himself, and yet she'd still held on to the vision they'd once shared. I don't know what to say, he managed. Say you'll use it. Say you'll build something that matters. That's enough. They spent the next 4 hours going through every detail. She explained her thinking behind each section, showed him research that supported different approaches, pointed out potential challenges and how to address them. She was animated and passionate, more like the person he remembered from before everything fell apart. Around midnight, they found themselves sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. The single work light cast long shadows across the room. Can I ask you something? He said. She nodded, pulling her knees up to her chest. Why are you really helping me? And please don't say it's just for the kids. She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. Because I need to know something. I need to know if you're doing this for real this time, or if you're going to get scared again and walk away when things get hard. I need to know if you've actually changed or if this is just temporary. That's fair, he said. I can't prove it to you with words. I can only show you through my actions. I know, she said. That's why I'm here. I'm watching, waiting to see if this time is different. The honesty between them felt both painful and necessary, like cleaning out an infected wound. It hurt, but it was the only way to heal. And if I prove it, he asked, if I show you this is real, then what? The center was starting to take shape. The walls were painted now, a warm golden color that made the space feel welcoming. He'd fixed the roof, updated the electrical system, and somehow managed to get the ancient heating system working again. The place was starting to feel less like a construction zone and more like somewhere kids would actually want to spend time. But more than the physical transformation, something else was happening. She'd become a regular presence, stopping by a few times a week with updates to the curriculum or suggestions for the space. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm, working side by side but keeping things professional. Friendly but with careful boundaries neither of them crossed. His mom came to visit once she was well enough. She walked through the space with tears in her eyes, touching the walls he'd painted, sitting in the chairs he'd assembled, imagining the young people who would soon fill these rooms. I'm so proud of you, she said, hugging him tight. This is who you were always meant to be. Opening day was set for 3 weeks away. He'd spread the word through community centers, schools, and local churches. 30 kids had already signed up, ranging from middle school to high school age. Young people who needed guidance, support, someone to believe in them. The pressure was building. What if he couldn't deliver? What if he'd built this whole thing and had no idea how to actually run it? The doubts crept in during quiet moments, usually late at night when he was alone with his thoughts. One evening, he was at the center moving furniture around for the 100th time, trying to get the layout just right when she showed up unexpectedly. She wasn't carrying her usual folders or laptop, just herself. Hey, she said from the doorway. Got a minute? Of course. What's up? She came in and walked around the space slowly, like she was seeing it for the first time even though she'd been here dozens of times over the past 2 months. I've been thinking, she started, then stopped, started again. The opening is coming up fast. 3 weeks, he confirmed. I'm terrified. You should be. This is important work. She turned to face him, which is why I want to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me. His heart started beating faster. Okay, are you happy now? And I don't mean content or satisfied or proud of what you've built. I mean genuinely happy. Happy in a way that comes from living the life you're supposed to live. It was the question he'd been asking himself every day. He thought about it carefully before answering because she deserved his truth, not just what he thought she wanted to hear. Most days I wake up stressed about money, he said. I'm terrified I'll fail these kids. I second-guess every decision. I lie awake at night running through worst-case scenarios. He paused. But yeah, I'm happy. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something that matters, like I'm living with purpose instead of just going through motions. The fear is there, but it's different now. It's the kind of fear that comes with caring deeply about something, not the kind that comes from knowing you're living a lie. She nodded slowly, processing his words. I needed to hear that, because I've been holding back, protecting myself, and I think I need to stop doing that. What do you mean? I mean, I can't keep pretending I'm just here as a friend or a professional consultant. I'm here because I never stopped caring about you, about this dream we had together, about who we could be if we were both brave enough. The air in the room felt suddenly charged. 3 years of unspoken words seemed to be pressing against the walls, wanting out. I've spent all this time waiting to see if you'd follow through, she continued, if you'd really change. If this was real or just another phase that would fade when things got difficult. And I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion. I've seen you make hard choices. I've seen you show up every single day even when you were scared. And I believe you now. I believe this is real. He didn't know what to say. Hope and fear were warring inside him. But here's the thing, she said, her voice getting stronger. I'm not going to keep standing on the sidelines. I'm not going to keep pretending I'm fine with this careful distance we've maintained. Either we're doing this together, really together, or we need to stop halfway. Stop what? This, she gestured between them. Whatever this is. Because it's not friendship. It's not just professional collaboration. It's us orbiting around something we're both too scared to name. She walked closer until she was standing right in front of him. Her eyes were intense, searching his face for something. I need you to understand what I'm asking, she said. I'm not interested in taking things slow. I'm not interested in seeing what happens or playing it safe. I've spent 3 years being careful with my heart. I'm done with that. If we do this, if we really try again, I need you all in. Not someday when you're less scared or when the center is more established. Right now, today, his throat was dry. That's a lot. I know it is. That's the point. I need to know if you're brave enough to choose this. To choose us. Not when it's convenient or comfortable, but right now when it's messy and uncertain and scary. She looked straight into his eyes, and there was no hesitation in her voice when she said it. Do it now. The words hung in the air between them. 2 simple words that meant everything. An invitation and a challenge. A moment where everything could change or stay forever the same. His mind was racing. This was it. The real test. Not building the center or quitting his job or any of the external changes he'd made. This was about whether he could be truly vulnerable. Whether he could choose love without guarantees, without knowing how things would turn out. All his old fears tried to surge up. What if it didn't work? What if he let her down again? What if he wasn't capable of being the partner she deserved? But then he thought about his mom's words. Life is too short for living in fear. He thought about the empty years he'd spent playing it safe, and how they'd been the most miserable of his life. He thought about this woman standing in front of him who had every reason to protect herself, but was choosing to be brave instead. She was showing him what courage looked like. The least he could do was meet her there. He took both her hands in his. They were shaking slightly, and he realized she was just as scared as he was. She was just choosing to be scared and brave at the same time. I choose you, he said, and his voice was clear and sure. Not someday. Not when I have everything figured out or when I feel more secure. Right now, I choose us. I choose to be all in even though it terrifies me. Even though I don't know what's going to happen. I choose this. Tears started running down her cheeks. You mean it? Because I can't go through losing you again. I can't. I mean it, he said. I choose you every day. Your dreams and mine. Your fears and mine. Whatever comes, we face it together. She searched his face one more time, looking for any doubt or hesitation. She must have found what she needed because she finally let herself fully smile. Not the careful, guarded smile she'd been giving him for weeks. A real one that lit up her whole face. Then we do this, right?